Thank you, Cynthia. Hello and good morning, everyone. How are you guys? Good. Great. So today I'm going to talk to you about how we can enable emotional intelligence by making use of what we say and what we do online. So let us start by probing into what we actually mean by emotions. So emotions are very complex psychophysiological reflections of our state of mind, and they usually arise as a response to how we react to internal stimuli such as biochemical reactions in our brains, or to external stimuli such as environmental influences. So emotions play a very, very important role in our lives, and it goes without saying, we all realize that. They help us frame our attitudes, they drive our attention, and they also help us impact our social relationships. Given the importance of emotions in our life and the utility that it can help us understand human behavior, there's a very rich body of work, especially in psychology, to understand and measure human emotion. In fact, the picture that you see up on the slide, it's based on a seminal work in psychology which has categorized human emotions into 6 different types. And interestingly, these 6 emotions were found to be pretty consistent across different cultures, people, demographics, geographic regions, and whatnot. So, if we have a way to measure, understand, and assess our emotions in a systematic manner, it can hopefully help us become proactive. It can help us, in other words, become emotionally intelligent. This is what we call EQ, and there is a lot of discussion and a lot of interest in both the research community and otherwise to understand what is really the role that EQ plays in our lives. How is it different, or how is it a part of more kind of important and traditional measures of how we characterize people, such as personality traits, IQ, and so forth. Nevertheless, putting all of that aside, it goes without saying that EQ is very important for us. And if we have an ability to assess that, it can work wonders and even make a positive impact in our lives. Fast forwarding a little bit to the present day, compared to all the work that was done in psychology years back, the things around us haven't changed quite much. In fact, we're still expressing a variety of emotions around a variety of contexts and things that we experience in our daily lives through these variety of experiences and emotions that we express. What has really facilitated this kind of expression of emotion are the proliferation of web tools. Today we have a variety of different tools, social platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, and so forth, which lets us share our emotions. What is happening in our lives? What do we see? What do we experience? And so forth. In fact, there is a lot of controversy and interest in trying to understand the role that these web tools like Twitter and Facebook played during the revolutions in the Arab Springs, for example. It's said that people adopted these tools, they came out of their shells, they generated awareness, they got people together, and they participated in social and political activism. In other words, it gave an opportunity for people to estimate their own emotional intelligence as well as the emotional intelligence of their community, their groups, and so forth. A tool that has come really to the fore in making all this happen is Twitter. Twitter is a microblogging service. It lets people share very short updates about what is happening in their lives, what they're doing, how they're feeling, and so forth. And ever since its launch in 2006, it has been gaining a lot of traction. Today, it has 500 million users and is a very highly visited website on the internet. And it's not just protests or movements or unusual, unfortunate circumstances that the human race often experiences, and that's when they turn to these tools to express their feelings and emotion, but also these tools are increasingly becoming part of our daily life in terms of our experiences, what we see around us, and so forth. Take, for example, the domain of politics. We all know how people turn to social media to express their thoughts about their favorite political candidate during the presidential elections in 2008, and more so actually this year. Take, for example, the case of the financial crisis that kicked off in 2008, and how these kind of tools could led governmental agencies and otherwise to try and understand what is the person on the street who lost a job feel about the economy, or how about someone who is thinking of investing in the stock market is going to react to this kind of crisis. And finally, take the domain of business, advertising, and marketing. Enterprises and organizations are increasingly turning to these type of tools to understand how their customers are feeling about a recent release of their product. Putting it all together, it turns out that Twitter in particular and the other tools like Facebook are increasingly becoming a very powerful mechanism for us to evaluate and understand our emotional experiences, and thereby maybe hopefully we'll be able to assess our EQ in a much better manner. The first part of the talk, I'm going to talk about how we can measure and assess EQ at a collective level, at the level of the population involving hundreds and thousands and millions of people. The slide that you see up here, it is based on a study that we did on understanding expression of emotions on Twitter, based on several million people over a year period. We used a popular instrument for studying psycholinguistics, and that's called circumflex. So the circles that you see up here represent those circles and characterize human emotions by not only in terms of the positivity and negativity, but also in terms of the intensity. We studied a few social behavior, and I'm going to talk very briefly about two of them. We found that people are increasingly expressing negative, low-intensity emotions online. The other thing that we found is that people who tend to be more social in maintaining connections and reaching out to their audiences and so forth tend to be expressing happier emotions. So in some sense, a notion, an understanding of the behavior along these social attributes in the light of emotional expression helps us better understand what is the EQ of these millions of people together, or what is the EQ of this group or community or so forth. The insights of this study were tremendous. For the first time ever, we were able to understand and estimate and measure human emotion at a scale that was never possible before, at the scale of millions of individuals. And all this has been made possible with the adoption of these web tools by individuals all over the world. The other more nuanced finding that we encountered was that not all emotions are created equal, right? We all express emotions in different ways and in different manners, in different contexts. Of course, we are not always happy or always sad. And of course, there are differences in the expression of emotions among us, in the sense that every person probably has a certain emotional fingerprint or an emotional signature. If we can measure that or assess that, it can help us better understand what is the emotional intelligence or EQ of that particular person in particular. That is going to be the next part of the talk, where we'll see how leveraging all the web activity and how people are saying and feeling on social media tools can help us understand and estimate EQ at the level of an individual, and hopefully it can help them improve the quality of their life. Remember when we started the talk, we talked about these really big global events like protests, politics, financial crisis, and so forth. And people are increasingly turning to social media to share information about these things. On the other end of the spectrum, we have really these personal, individual-focused events which are very, very important in our lives, but which we might not relate to others around us. So take, for example, a baby being born in a family, someone graduating, someone moving to a new place, someone getting married, losing a loved one, or even meeting with a traumatic accident. We often turn to social media to share those experiences. And if it's a positive experience, we are reaching out to our friends and family to share our joy. Or if it's a negative experience, we're reaching out to the same set of people so that they can console us, we can seek some social support. In a sense, we are expressing our emotions with our audience around these big life events. And being able to estimate that, hopefully, can help us understand how do we change our behavior. What is it that I can say about my own emotional intelligence and what has changed ever since this big life event happened in my life? So what I'm saying here is that these type of different social platforms can act as a really, really powerful tool that can help us measure and understand these emotional experiences of people around these life events, and so that if something goes wrong around an event, if there's something to worry about, we can take appropriate action. Maybe we can seek social support, or maybe we can take care of our health and thereby improve our quality of life and make a positive impact in our lives as well as the lives of people we care about. I'm going to take a particular example to illustrate how measuring emotional behavior across these big life events can help us become more emotionally aware, can help us reflect on us, and can help us become better individuals. And that particular event I'm going to talk about is childbirth, which is particularly could be of interest to the event that we have here today on women. And I'm going to talk about how new mothers change their behavior or undergo a severe behavioral changes around this major life event that they experience, which is the birth of their child, and how we can experience that based on web activity. Why could this kind of a study be important? It could be important because beyond estimating emotional intelligence of people, it could help us devise low-cost and privacy-preserving mechanisms that these new mothers could adopt. And thereby, they could not only seek social support and reach out to their friends and family, but also they could encourage general better health and wellness during postpartum. For this study, again, we used the platform Twitter. And what we did was we looked for these mothers in the Twitter feeds who announced that they had a child born. And we looked at all of their posts several months before the child was born and several months after the child was born. And we tried to see what is it that changed about their emotional footprint, their emotional expression, their behavior in general. The findings of this research were very interesting. When we compared the behavior of these new mothers with a background cohort, which is the average Twitter user who did not give birth to a baby, we see that the behavior of these new mothers are quite different. And what we notice is that they're different in ways quite shocking. For example, their social activity seems to go down in postpartum. Their positivity goes down, negativity goes up, the intensity of the emotions that they express, that goes down, and so on. But presumably, some mothers are changing more in their emotional behavior than others, right? And hopefully, by being able to track and understand and identify who are those mothers who are changing severely, can hopefully help us become more proactive and help those mothers, maybe reach out to them and they can do something about beyond assessing their IQ, EQ, they can hopefully seek medical advice if it's necessary. So when we looked at the individual level comparison across these mothers, it did validate what we expected, which is that certain mothers changed a lot, which is evident from the heat maps that you see here, where you have bright squares on the left side and darker squares on the right side, implying that these mothers underwent a decrease in their positive emotion and the intensity of their emotions in postpartum compared to what it was before the child was born. If you look at the kinds of language that these mothers are using, it's quite revealing as well. The kind of words that they use are often emotion-laden. It's about the baby, and once in a while they're expressing negativity. And all in all, this is quite different from the kind of language and words that other people on Twitter are using. What are the implications of this type of research? Well, what we found very interestingly is that around 12 to 15% of the mothers in this study underwent very severe change. And if we look at psycholinguistic research and psychiatry research, we will find that a lot of the changes in the behavioral markers and emotions that we observe, they are known to be correlated with depression or depression vulnerabilities. The other really interesting observation was that the percentages that we found in the study for mothers changing severely, that aligns with the percentages of women having postpartum in the United States. What it tells us is that in the future, it may be possible that leveraging all this web activity that is happening on Twitter and Facebook and whatnot, we can begin to develop unintrusive measures, diagnostic measures that not only the mothers could make use of in terms of reflection, in terms of assessing their EQ, but we can hopefully attempt to help the medical community at large to use some of these kind of measures along with the traditional measures in predicting, tracking, and forecasting someone who might be vulnerable to this kind of a condition. And it's not just postpartum depression. I would like to mention that we can think of these kind of applications, and we've been working in them along a variety of mental and behavioral concerns that we experience, in the sense that we can use all these footprints of our online activity and try to make sense of our behavior, try to assess our EQ in a way that can improve our life. Take, for example, the case of bipolar mood disorder. We can look at web activity and so forth to see when we are looking for medications, at what point someone is going into this strange phase which is abnormal. Take, for example, the case of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, that a lot of the troops, when they're back from deployment, experience. And the opportunities are endless. So smart interventions and devising mechanisms and early warning systems that can take a valuable action ahead of time can hopefully help all these mothers and all these other people who might be needing help, or who might not even be aware that they're experiencing or having that kind of a condition that they need to put attention to. And the good news is that we can make use of all this web data that we have and help make this challenge more realizable in the future. On those lines, I would like to mention about a tool that my colleagues and I have been working on, and that's called mood phrases. What it does, it helps you reflect on your Twitter activity or Facebook activity and so forth in terms of the kinds of emotions that you've been experiencing in the past, positivity and negativity. And you can look at your activity over months, weeks, years, and so forth, and you can reflect through these phases of the moon. And you can know what time or what period in your life you were upset, and what is going on, and what is different in your life, so that if something goes wrong, you can take the appropriate action and try to make a positive change in your life. The road ahead is extremely exciting, I believe, and we as a research community and a society have a lot to do and a lot to offer and a lot to utilize based on what is going on the web. It's not just for fun, it's not just for productivity or making our lives easier. There is something more profound to that, which is making our lives better. With that, I would acknowledge all my wonderful and smart colleagues, both within and outside of Microsoft. And I thank you all for being here today, and I'll be glad to hear what you think about this research. Thank you.